Thank you, Zelda. So there is a Scientology school here in the Kansas City area, and it is in Dan O'Connor's basement of his house. And that sounds creepy, but it isn't. Dan O'Connor lives in like a $3 million mansion in a very, very, very nice home. And that's where the school is located. And so I know this because I was going to put Huxley in that school. It's $1,000 a month per kid, and his nanny, who I think is like 16 or 17, is the teacher. Before that, it was my brother-in-law, Sam. Sam Argis was the teacher, and he drove the bus. He quit because he got a better paying job, and he hated driving that bus all the way from their house to the org. From the school to the org, it's like an hour. It's far. Yeah, it's very serial killer. Cave Mom, ma'am, thank you for being a new member, babe. So the bus of kids are being bused from school. They get out of school, and then they are bused to the Church of Scientology, Kansas City, to go on course until their parents get off work at 10 o'clock at night. So they get up and they go to school. I can't remember what time the school starts. I want to say it was 8 in the morning. So they get up, they go to school, and then they're bused from in the afternoon to go on course at the church. I know this for a fact because one, my brother-in-law was the teacher and the driver, but two, I was going to put Huxley in there. I couldn't afford $1,000 a month, but guess who could? Doug and Brenda, my in-laws, and they were pushing me very, very hard to pull Huxley out of his public school he's always gone to and put him in that school. And I was really weighing on that. I was really weighing on doing that. But something in my mind, something in my gut kept saying, I don't really want to do that. It will unsocialize my kid. My kid had always gone to public school. So I was like, there was only like 10 kids that went to that school, and they're all different ages. They don't get to be kids. No. So that's whatever you saw on Natalie's channel. That's the bus that goes from Dan O'Connor's house to the school every day. And they go on course till 10 o'clock at night, and their parents come pick them up. And that's all they do. Scientology all day long. Is that school just for public or also Sea Org kids? Both. Yeah, it's for anybody who wants to pay $1,000 a month. They'll take your money. It doesn't really matter. They even went so far as to tell me, because I went to one of the school fundraisers. I went to all these like weird things where Dan was trying to recruit kids in for the school. I kind of had to be sold on it. And Dan was like, this is not a Scientology school in any way. He was like, all people are welcome from all denominations. And we don't teach L. Ron Hubbard stuff. And I was like, you realize you're talking to someone who's been in as long as you. Like, you're not selling me any. But I got this close to pulling Huxley out of school. It was hard sell, hardcore recruiting to get those kids in. As a matter of fact, I believe in the Kansas City area, all the public Scientologists, all those kids, all the kids of Scientologists go to that school except Huxley. Huxley was the only one that I wouldn't. Dan O'Connor is the fax thrower. He's the fax man. Yes. Do they learn anything in that school? I mean, it's all Scientology. It's called Applied Scholastics, and it's all the works of L. Ron Hubbard. Yeah, $1,000 a month. And I got very, very close to pulling Huxley out and putting him in there because I was getting high pressure, high pressure, you guys, to put him in there. Because I kept saying I can't afford it. There was no way I was going to be able to afford $1,000 a month. And of course, my in-laws swooped in and they were like, no worries, we'll pay for it. And I would say, my other thing was, thank you, a running bet for becoming a member. The other thing was, and Mimi's love, thank you. That is so nice, guys. Thank you. Then I gave the excuse. I was like, well, I can't drive him. I have a full-time job, which I did. So I was like, I can't afford $1,000 a month and then leave work and go pick him up. And they were like, we've got that covered. A van is going to take him from Dan's house to the org where he will then go on course all afternoon. And you come get him at 9:30 at night when course is over. And I was like, I don't think Huxley would adjust to that very well. He's been in public school. Like, he's not going to want to do that. They just kept hard selling me and pressuring me to get Huxley into that school. And I'm so happy that I was outed and hey, Noreen, and everything happened. I mean, report them to the Department of Education in Jeff City. We could geoplanet Jane, but as far as I know, it's legit. I mean, as far as I know, he's, I remember when Dan was trying, Dan and Amanda, they're the directors of the school. I remember when they were trying to get it open and they had huge fundraisers and everybody was donating massive amounts of money to get that because we were going to be the only Scientology school in the whole tri-state area and the whole Midwest. So it was such a big deal. So they were hardcore recruiting and they were hardcore fundraising for it. So I'm pretty sure I remember them getting like permits and things like that. It's not just like a setup in a basement. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's known. I don't know. Yeah, the whole thing is definitely a money-making scam. Yeah. Does Dan throw fax machines at the kids? I hope not. It's cult training, 100%, Shelly. Yeah, caveman. My gut the whole time. I just kept getting pushed and pushed and pushed. And I was like, but I can't, but he can't, but I can't for this reason. And another thing was my mother. My mother doesn't, she loves me, but she loves Huxley. My mom would kill for that kid. My mom becomes an absolute psycho mother bear when it comes to Huxley. She'll even say, you're an adult, whatever to you, but not my grandson. Like my mom freaks the F out, which I love that. I love that about her. I remember her saying to me over and over, do not put him in that school. She would say, over my dead body, if I find out you put him in that school. Like my mom hated Scientology. And she even said, she was like, if you want to do Scientology, fine. But that's where I draw the line. Don't put my grandson in there. And she was right too. So I had that pressure coming down on me too. So yeah, guys, that's what that bus was. Whatever you saw, I don't know. I didn't see what Natalie talked about, but that's what it was. And it is so Sam, my brother-in-law, was the teacher and the driver of the bus. He quit, and then they put their nanny who they recruited. Dan recruited his nanny. I'll just say this real quick, and I don't know if you guys want to hear this or not. And then I do want to talk about my Sephora stuff. Dan recruited his nanny. Dan has 3 children. Okay. I'm going to try to break this down so you understand it. I know all of this because I was close friends with Dan and Amanda when all of this went down. I was hanging out at their house. I was coming over all the time. Amanda and I were doing together all the time. The nanny was between the ages of 11 and 13 when they recruited her to become their nanny. They pulled her out of public school. They moved her in to Dan and Amanda's house. Okay. I know this. I was there. This isn't some hearsay story. I was there. And she is one of 4 or 5 sisters of a Scientology family. Okay. The mom and the dad are both on staff at the org. Dan, I don't know, Zelda. Dan went to the parents of these staff members and said, we want your daughter to be our nanny. And they said, sure, take her, because they had 5 children and these people were super poor. Okay. Like dirt poor, couldn't afford their kids anyway. Dan takes her. She was maybe 12 years old. Maybe. I know this girl. Moves her into their house and says, your pay will be your lodging. You get free lodging living here. And we're going to take you with us on trips when we go to Flag for training and stuff. And you will work around the clock. They pulled the girl out of school. Believe it. I was there. They pulled the girl out of school and she became their full-time nanny. And I remember Amanda, specifically the mother, Dan's wife, was super mean to this girl. Super mean to her because she was a 12-year-old and she was annoying to them and she was not doing things right. Amanda kept having to like train her to get it down. Like Amanda was such a about like routines with her kids and like real regimented and like they can't eat this and they can't eat that and you need to cook this properly. I remember Amanda being so mean to this 12-year-old girl. Like, no, you're not feeding them at the right time. They need to have this snack. They need to have enough protein for when they go on course. They need to eat this before they go in session. Yeah. Treated this girl like absolute human trafficking to a T. And she's still their nanny. It's all she knows. They pulled her out of school. And so Sam, my brother-in-law, quit and got a different job. Well, the nanny is now the teacher there. And that was one of the reasons I also didn't put Huxley in that school. Because I was like, I'm not spending $1,000 a month, whether it's my money or not, on Huxley to go get educated at a school that's supposed to be prestigious by a 14-year-old teacher. Like this girl, they were like, well, he's gone. We're going to put you in now. Not only are you going to nanny our children, you're going to be the teacher of the school. I was like, that's she's not qualified. She's 14 years old. Yeah. Yep. That's the case. So that's what a good person, people, the O'Connors are, guys. The O'Connors are, if you were Scientologists, you would know exactly who they are. They are highly, highly worshipped. Not just Aaron Smith Levin has said this, not just in the Kansas City area. Aaron will tell you, Dan O'Connor is known worldwide in the Church of Scientology. He's a big deal, huge, very highly respected, very, very highly regarded. Yeah, that's Dan O'Connor. And I know him very, very well, very personally. I know him very well. I've known him my entire life. And he's a real piece of, he's a disgusting human being. Turn them in. How do you turn them in? I mean, it's the same thing. It's like, go check out all the C word members and save them. How do you do it when they say everything's fine? We're not breaking the law. We're not here against our will. What do you do? If you went and turned him in, you know what would happen? Her parents would swoop in and go, that's not true. We're her parents. We've been caring for her. Everything's fine. They would totally clean it up and make it look like everything's fine. I know it's not because I was there. I witnessed it. I don't know, Gretchen only. I don't know. But I can tell you that girl, the underage girl, their nanny, that poor girl has been so weirdly, she's like a piece of veal. She is so awkward. She is not social. She is like glazed over. Oh yeah. In 82, it was the Cars, Jeff Kittinger, and me and Casey Moe. Well, Alex Carr is still there. He's training to be the ED because Liz Carr was training to be the ED and she dropped dead at 61 years old 2 years ago. I went to her funeral. I lived with Alex and Liz Carr when I was on staff. Jeff Kittinger was my stepfather. My mother married Jeff Kittinger. So I know these people very well. But yeah, yes, these people were my friends. It's all I knew. But that girl, as much, what I'm trying to say is she's super awkward. Why? It's not her fault. She's never been socialized. She's like a piece of veal, right? She was put to work just like I was at a very young age against our will. We were recruited and told, this is what you're going to be doing now. You're not going to school anymore. So she's super, super awkward. And it just goes to show you, she's had a ton of Scientology training. Dan has forced all that down her throat. Oh, that was the other thing. That was her pay, was free room and board, and free training. He was going to pay for her training. Lucky her. How sweet. And I remember Dan saying that was a big deal. He was like, you're going to get free training from us. You lived with the Cars? Yep. I lived with the Cars for years. Yep. That girl is too young to legally work. Well, Verbo Boss, I mean, I love what you're saying, but so was I. So were all the other kids. I mean, they don't give, they will hide that. It's all we know. And nobody reports it. I mean, nobody checks in on it. Yeah. That girl is super messed up though. I'm telling you, I want to name her, but I'm not going to, because she's a minor and that just isn't right. And it wouldn't, I mean, I'm not vindictive like that. I don't want any harm to come to the girl. But what I'm saying is I feel so bad for her because I remember trying to have conversations with her and it was just like nobody home. You know why? She was going to school and she had 4 other sisters, siblings. She was ripped out of her home and put into the basement of Dan O'Connor's house and told, "You're gonna take care of these kids now." I mean, imagine what that does to your personality. You don't have one. I mean, she's just a slave. Noreen, tell me it's a cult without telling me it's a cult. Yeah, totally. It's so sad. It's really up. If her parents are dirt poor and she makes no cash, how does she handle personal needs? They pay for everything. They pay for everything. The O'Connors, she lives under their roof. So, like, I'm sure they make sure she has toothpaste, shampoo. I'm sure they feed her, but she gets the bare minimum, right? To take care of their children and be the teacher for that school. They're not going to starve the girl to death. They need her to be alive, right? So that's it. Child Protective Services, I don't know. Geoplanet Jane. I mean, this isn't as shocking. You guys are all freaked out and shocked right now. It doesn't shock me. I was there. I know what it's like. I don't know. It's like, doesn't even really bother me other than I can't stand those people and I think they should be exposed. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know what else to say. How could she be a teacher when she doesn't have an education herself? I know. It's pretty bizarre. Religious freedom. That's right, Kristen. Yeah, Zelda. As a matter of fact, Jeff told me the other day, you can't take a kid out of school at it by a certain, like, under 16, maybe in Missouri. So aren't there laws about kids getting proper education in America? Yes. But they break them all the time because nobody finds out. I mean, they didn't know that I was pulled out of school and recruited and put on staff. Who's going to check on that? And you know what? Liz Carr had Abby Carr. Liz and Alex had Abby Carr. Abby Carr is 5 years younger than me. She was there when I joined staff. So I was 13. She was 8. Um, I get it, Paula Puffer. I get it. She was 8 years old and never went to school. They just brought her on staff every day. She went on course all day. And I remember asking that once. I said, "Why don't you go to school?" And she was like, "Well, if the state ever comes or checks, I'm homeschooled." She was like, "We're homeschooling me." And I was like, "But this isn't homeschooling. You're just going on course all day studying L. Ron Hubbard." And she was like, "But it's homeschool." I was like, "Oh my God." The kid never went to school. Yeah, maybe our lawyer friend Zach could. And you know, guys, she's untouchable. You think that Dan doesn't already have some kind of a plan about this? I mean, they're prepared, especially because they know I have a channel and I'm eventually probably going to talk about this. Yeah, maybe this video will help, right? I don't know, Blake, but I mean, guys, it's like what Abby told me when I first started on staff. And she was like, "I'm homeschooled. Like, we're homeschooled." You think they don't have some kind of a plan in place for, like, if somebody comes a knocking? I'm sure um, I just think they have their ass covered, I'm sure. Yeah, exactly. These kids are off the radar, no teachers or peers to report them. Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, of course it's against the law. We're not going to let something like that stop us. I mean, they don't care. Scientologists are entitled and they make their own laws. It truly is like a giant whole separate life. It's a whole separate world. They abide by their own laws. They don't talk to outsiders. They don't go anywhere outside of the church. Think about that in your mind for a minute. Visualize that. They go from a Scientology school, they're bused to the church, their parents pick them up and take them home, and they do it all over again. They're not going on vacations. They don't do normal shit. They don't go to movies. They don't go out to the mall and walk around and have fun and get a fucking pretzel. They're not doing any of that. They are blinders. They are pieces of veal, just like I was. That's what I mean. It's like I was in the darkness my whole life. Everything's so damn bright now because I'm seeing the sun. So I don't know, Joe. Any goth clubs? I don't go to clubs, dude. Otherwise, I would love to know the answer to that because I would love to see you. Talk about slipping through the cracks. Yes, Shelly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, how did I marry Fred in Scientology? It's very frowned upon, yarn prepper. It's very frowned upon. Actually, Fred, not so much. It was more Jeff. Fred was so old, they didn't really expect me to get him in and recruit him. Jeff, they were all over me about. They expected me to get Jeff in and start paying for services and get him up the bridge and all of that. Yeah, I mean, it's a terrible situation. I'm sorry that I'm not more upset about it. It's just I came from it. Doesn't really shock me. I'm not really even bothered by it. I think because I hope that doesn't upset you guys, but I'm pretty desensitized to the fact that Dan took her and did that. I mean, I did all kinds of I didn't want to do and was against my will at that age. It just doesn't surprise me.